Good morning. It's April 5th, 2020, Palm Sunday in the year of COVID-19. We're the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Columbus, Georgia. Welcome to our pre-recorded Sunday morning service. I'm Bill Harlan, your volunteer service leader, and next to me is Dr. Amanda Rees, a geographer, who's going to be our main speaker today. I would remind you that if you're here because you thought Google was going to send you to Columbus, Ohio, that's okay. Welcome to Georgia. Visitors are always welcome here. Our fellowship is an inclusive community. We support each other in our own personal searches for truth and meaning. Our members include all manner of Christians, Catholics, and Protestants. We also welcome and have as members Jews, Buddhists, Wiccans, pagans, Seventh-day Adventists, people who follow other earth-centered practices. Some of us are atheists or agnostics or humanists, both secular and spiritual. And so you might ask yourself, how can this hodgepodge even call itself a fellowship? And believe me, we often ask ourselves the same question. We have some lively discussions, but we do share some ideas. For example, we believe that how you treat people is more important than the details of your theology. And we're open to change. We're always in the process of creating this beloved community. That's a thing, by the way, beloved community. Martin Luther King. You can look it up. And speaking of Martin Luther King, have you ever wondered how many Martin Luther King boulevards there are in the United States? And have you ever thought about how they're distributed? Our speaker today, Dr. Rees, often thinks about things like that. As I said, she's a geographer. She's going to talk about Black heritage tourism in the 21st century, and specifically about Black heritage tourism here in Columbus, Georgia. Her talk's related to the importance of place and the importance of the worth and dignity of all people in our UU cosmology. We start the service by lighting the chalice, which symbolizes reason, tolerance, and freedom, and also respect, compassion, and love. It works. Old-time technology. Each morning, we must hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, and to give back. Dag Hammarskjöld said that. He was Secretary General of the United Nations when he was killed in a plane crash. He was on a mission to bring comfort to the world. During the current pandemic, our healthcare workers and first responders and others are also bringing comfort to the world at some personal risk to themselves. In fact, that's kind of a Palm Sunday theme, isn't it? If I remember correctly to my days as an Episcopalian, when Jesus rode into Jerusalem, he faced a very uncertain and dangerous future, but he entered the city with courage and faith, and his message to the world was, we offer healing to the sick, to the hungry, and to those in need. I'm just a volunteer service leader. I'm not a minister, so I'm going to stop there, except to say that the rest of us can bring comfort to the world too, and that's by staying home. Help slow the spread of this disease. That's why we're coming together on YouTube this morning, which brings me to our announcements. And the main announcement is UU has left the building. Although it looks like I'm broadcasting from our lovely meditation garden, this green screen is hiding behind me, is hiding my messy office. Amanda's coming to us directly from her very nice laundry room. And we figured out all kinds of imaginative ways to stay together. We are still functioning as a strong fellowship. We're meeting in small groups by an application called Zoom. It's free and pretty easy to use. Like everything on the internet, Zoom can be frustrating And it also comes with some privacy warnings, and you should read about those, but there are ways to reduce the risk. So do be informed. This past week, for example, we have a regular Wednesday night discussion group, and 17 people showed up on Zoom. It was great. We also have a regular Friday lunch discussion group. Usually we meet at a Chinese restaurant. This week we met at our own houses, and we had another great discussion. Our yoga instructor, Erica Bloodworth, is conducting yoga by Zoom. And something's wrong with my Zoom application because I can't touch the floor during downward facing dog, but I'll work on that glitch. All of these events were fun and mostly easy. Be prepared to practice. I recommend going to zoom.us and reading and watching a tutorial before you sign up. We also talked last week about finding joy in the time of COVID-19. We had a discussion about that, and we learned that a lot of us are catching up on reading. We're practicing music. We are learning languages. We're gardening. We're cleaning closets and garages. Some of us are also taking time to do absolutely nothing. That's okay. Matter of fact, that's kind of an art. You can also find ways to reach out and help people in the community. For example, Joyce Hickson, Susan Stevenson, and Robbie Henson are organizing a phone bank. Next week, they're going to start contacting all our members and friends. And if you need something, by the way, and there is some aspect of this stay-at-home order that's really got you buffaloed, do email us at the church email address or call us. Brenda checks these emails and phone messages often, and we'll put somebody in touch with you to help you get that information. We have other members, Connie and Sophie, Connie Usry and her granddaughter Sophie, for example, who are making masks. So are Rick and Karen Spradlin. They're making masks and giving them to hospitals in Phoenix City. So there's lots of things we can do. I think one of the phrases I really like that originated in Canada is called caremongering. And that is finding easy ways to get out in the community and help somebody. My main announcement today is one that goes to all our 140 members and friends. Each of you is very important to us. We miss you, even if we see you on a video conference. We miss you even if we see you in person at a distance of 6 feet. John Nix pointed out during one of our discussions last week that human beings are social animals. We are designed to be together, and we are designed for touch. And that has been taken away from us. And there's a cost to that in suffering and loss. So let's remember to take care of ourselves. Let's take care of each other. Take care of the world by staying home, maintaining your distance, and be kind. At UU, we call ourselves a non-creedal religion, which sounds like a little bit like an oxymoron. We don't have a creed, but we do have principles, and we traditionally remind ourselves of these 7 principles every Sunday. I'm going to share my screen now, if all goes well, and we're going to go through our 7 principles. Feel free to read along with me at home. First, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, which really goes to the heart of Amanda's talk today. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning. The right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. One of the ways that we proclaim the vitality of our fellowship is by sharing joys and concerns. We're small enough that at this point during our service, normally people stand up and share a short personal joy and concern, and we light a candle for concerns. Obviously, we couldn't do that, so we've got some people have sent them in remotely to us. And so we're going to do it a little bit differently today. I think you can see the chalice behind me. And rather than light these votive candles, which are, I was afraid we're going to set off the smoke alarm in the beautiful meditation garden behind me, we're going to do something a little bit different. We are going to use rocks and water. Rocks remain steadfast. Water refreshes and nourishes. And so does our care for each other. So I'm going to signify our concerns by moving small rocks into a small amount of water. And I'm going to start for a stone for sorrows or concerns you might not want to share in public. Clink. Now I'd like to select a stone so that we can think about everyone who's been directly harmed by this coronavirus and for their families. And I'm going to share another one so that we keep in our hearts all the first responders and healthcare workers and millions upon millions of other people around the world who are keeping this planet working. And they're all doing it at a little bit of a risk to themselves. I'd also like to select a rock for people who have been financially harmed by this pandemic. Closer to home, on the concern side, I'm sad to report that our member Jason Neal lost his grandfather to cancer recently. His grandfather was an important part of Jason's life, so please keep the entire Neal family in your thoughts. And Amanda, you are a member of our fellowship, and could you care to unmute yourself and maybe share a concern that you have that's personal?
Yes, I lost a very good friend this week to the coronavirus, and have in Britain, and have both cousin and uncle in hospital with the disease. So it's hitting hard and fast.
Yeah, and are they in the UK?
Yes.
Okay, so that is personal. On the joy side of the ledger, Janet and Norm Horofker, who many of us know quite well, who now live in Halifax, Nova Scotia, announced the birth of their first grandchild, Millie Louise Preston, born to her proud parents, Kayla and Andy. So congratulations to Halifax. And Pat Hart also reports a joy from the Hart household. Outside their back window, 30 wild purple petunias are in bloom, and in the middle are 2 perfect white irises. Pure joy, Pat reports. I'll select a stone just to commemorate some joy. And this is the part of the service where we ask volunteers to pass out a toast. No, before I do that, we're changing the order of the service. I almost forgot. You're not going to get away with us not passing the collection plate. We figured out how to do that thanks to our treasurer, Ron Ussery, and it's really easy, and I need to share my screen to show you how that works. It's PayPal. We now have an account, and so how you can make your donation this morning or anytime is to go to your PayPal account or sign up. It's free and easy, and PayPal is really secure. And once you have an account, you can make a donation to us by using our username, which is at the bottom of your screen. That's our Gmail address, uufcga@gmail.com. If you put that in, I did a donation this morning. Ron Ussery has also tested it out. It works fine. And normally we would have some lovely music while we pass out the collection. And as soon as we have this technology figured out better, we're going to do that. So that was a pretty painless collection plate. Now comes the part of our service where we ask volunteers to pass out the cups of wine or juice for our toast. And this morning, that's going to be your job. So hit pause if you have to go get something to drink, get some wine, juice, coffee, something else, something stronger. Who's going to know? Visitors, please note our toast carries absolutely no doctrinal significance. It's just a warm tradition written by our own Ed Wilson, and we invite you to join us. I'm going to read the toast, and you all at home have one line that we'll say together. I'm going to put it up on the screen, and I will give you a very obvious cue when it gets to be your part. So I need to share your line. Which is this. Please raise your cups. We celebrate life with its beauty and its pain. We lift these cups in tribute to the achievements of human minds and hands, and in sensitivity to the frustrations of misfortune and heartache, not fixing blame or credit for the outcome of chance, sensing the risk, savoring the joy, sharing it all, knowing of the certainty of death and remembering the value of each moment. We drink our toast of celebration to this time, to the future, to each other, to the throbbing of the earth and sea and sky with life. Together, we drink this toast in celebration of life. And now it's time for our Sunday talk. I think I've mentioned before that Dr. Rees is a geographer and a professor at Columbus State University with specialties that include community, cultural, urban, and tourism geography. She and her husband, David, are members of our fellowship, relatively new members, but they've already become good friends. David helps out with our sound system at church. Amanda sings in the choir, and she also gives talks. So please welcome Dr. Amanda Rees.
Thank you, Bill.
It's all yours.
So in our mid-sized minority southern city, one of the ways we recognize the dignity and worth of every individual is in the stories we share with ourselves and those who visit us. So public history, which takes histories written by academic historians and shares it with a more general audience, combined with Black heritage tourism, can play a small role in celebrating dignity and worth, especially when we can do this in our public spaces. And that's really what I'm going to talk about today. I'm just going to make sure I'm sharing the screen. All right, so public history. If you asked Historic Columbus, our local historic association, what the biggest call on their services was each year, they'll tell you it's a request for Black heritage tourism. And this is a picture here that my students and I collected from a local community in order to help do some interpretive work for public history. This is in Carver Heights along Ilgis Road. So why talk about Black heritage tourism? So what we're seeing across the country is a rise in interest, and actually also from international tourists coming in to the United States. People want to understand more about our civil rights history, and it's particularly powerful in the South. If you don't know this, maybe you're a heritage tourist yourself. Typically, heritage tourists want authenticity. And there's no better way of finding that is when we connect with our community and have them share their stories that they think are important for the community. So what are we seeing in this slide here? Well, there's incredible and rich variety of organizations that are beginning to pay civil rights history, in particular in the South, a lot of attention. UNESCO, which is a UN organization that has identified places like the Taj Mahal and Yellowstone National Park as World Heritage Sites, is in the process at the moment of identifying 3 churches in Alabama that are going to be recognized by the UN as important for understanding civil rights history. What we're seeing here on the screen is actually a large map of US civil rights history trail. As you can see, it goes across much of the eastern part of the United States. It's got a massive number of locations. We also see, and this was actually created in 2018 to help commemorate the assassination of Martin Luther King 50 years 50 years prior to that. So when we move from the map here down to the picture in our bottom left, we see a part of Atlanta which is a particular site on what Georgia has created also in 2018. They created a civil rights trail called the Martin Luther King Trail. What's really cool about that is they use a lot of public art to help connect folks with those sites, and you can sort of see that here in this image. All right, so and sort of a bit of a segue. What we've got here is, but we're going to be bringing this together, shifting from Martin Luther King footsteps to how many streets and boulevards there are in the United States that actually have been renamed in honor of Martin Luther King. This started to happen very quickly after his death. In Columbus, we first renamed a street in 1978. As you can see here across the United States, we see Martin Luther King being recognized and commemorated in over 730 communities. Perhaps no surprise that there is a concentration in the Southeast, especially in these 7 states that comprise the Black Belt of the American South. Move that along. But as you may know, you may not be aware of this, but it's probably in the back of your mind, when we often bump into Martin Luther King boulevards and streets, they're often in the most challenged, economically challenged part of our communities. They're often pretty small, truncated sections that maybe go on for a mile and really don't connect one community to another. So what's been really interesting about what's happening in Columbus over the last 2 or 3 years is that there's been an organization called Turnaround Columbus, which is actually seeking to both celebrate and commemorate civil rights sites and folks in the city, and doing that along and actually extended Martin Luther King Outdoor Learning Trail. So if you can see the map here, Martin Luther King Boulevard just basically goes from here over to here. What this organization has done is the city has actually re-identified this whole green section here and called it the Martin Luther King Jr. Outdoor Learning Trail. So what we see over to the west side, you can see the river here on the left-hand side. That's the Chattahoochee. You can see a lot of locations which are the Black Heritage Trail landmarks, and the city was actually pretty forward-thinking. In 2000, it created a Black Heritage Trail. but it sort of stopped sort of in this sort of area. So what the Martin Luther King Trail, Outdoor Learning Trail does is actually extends it and includes some really important and very interesting sites that really speak to the expansion of African American communities into new suburbs like Carver Heights are over here, and talks about life and the civil rights struggles in the mid 20th century. So my students and I, in several classes, this is not just a one-off thing, along with colleagues at CSU who are graphic designers, have developed 11 text panels. I guess I should have pointed them out where they are on that previous map. I can do that. I can go backwards. So we've got these in red. These are where the text panels are that we've been working on. And this is a quick glimpse of what they're going to look like. They've still got some editing to do, so they're not perfect yet, but you'll get a good sense that we begin to talk about civil rights history. This text panel is outside the A.J. McClung YMCA, or will be, hopefully, by the end of this year. And it tells the story of folks working to desegregate the community. We have another one here, very close to it, actually, that talks about some of the challenges that civil rights sort of efforts ran into in the early 70s when things became a lot more economically stagnant. And then we also tell the story here of Carver Heights as one particular community, which really was an engine of the Black middle class in the city. It was the first African-American community to be established as a suburb after World War II. And this is where folks who had access to mortgages could actually buy a new home. If you've ever heard of the term redlining, that's when banks would say people couldn't get mortgages to invest in property that had already been built. So that's often why you see so much degradation in the center of cities, is because of lack of investment that was driven by federal policy, or banking policy anyway, and the feds just sort of supported it. So in these text panels, we're telling a lot of interesting stories, challenging stories, stories about individuals, stories about groups of folks looking to make important changes. So in conclusion, I guess what's exciting about what's happening in Columbus, at least from my perspective, is that I think we're beginning to think about celebrating, commemorating the dignity and worth of a majority of our population that have often been left out of histories of this community. And we're going to do it in very public ways, in public spaces, owned by the city, roadways, places next to streets. And it's very exciting, I think, and something that it's been a lot of fun, a lot of challenges to be part of.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda. That was really interesting. And you've sent me a document that I'm going to put up on our web. It should be up on our website today if this is Sunday. Obviously, we're pre-recording this. And this will give people at least a little bit of a jump start. They can take a little walk themselves and see some of these sites. Is that accurate?
Yes, not some of the new sites, but some of the sites in the downtown area, which are more sort of walkable. Some of the sites that we've added on the Martin Luther King Outdoor Learning Trail, a little bit further apart. So great to bike between them perhaps, but I've given you something that would help people, take an hour or so downtown and get a really great overview of some of the major issues and themes that have shaped civil rights in the 19th and 20th centuries, actually, in that particular tour.
Well, that is interesting, and it's rather a poignant talk, because I think we're feeling in some way that this coronavirus has robbed us of our public places. But even under the governor's order, which I support, the stay-at-home order, we can take walks as long as we do it in very small groups and preferably with members of your own family, 1 or 2 people. And you can get out and walk, and it's actually good for your health. So as long as you obey the guidelines, I think you can go out and take a walk and visit some of these places. Thank you so much, and we hope people will go to our UU website and get a walking tour and take a tour for themselves. Thank you so much. Now it's time to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish it that it might flow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you don't leave this place, but sign off from this broadcast. And I'll ask everybody to join me in our closing words. With unity of spirit, we go our ways in universal fellowship until we meet again. And don't forget to leave a comment on our YouTube broadcast. Thank you. See you next week.